Okay, we are going to be going through a webinar of QuickBooks Online Advanced. We're going to be talking about chart of accounts, setup, usage, organization is the biggest part of it. For those of people who are business owners, right, this is a great way to stomach looking at your financials. Sometimes it's really hard to make yourself look at your financials as a business owner, and I get that. I understand it, and I'm an accountant, still understand it. For those of you who are staff at a company, this is a great way to wow your boss. This is one of the coolest things ever, is this chart of accounts organization, because maybe you'll get them to look at their financials more often. All right, just a reminder of who Fourlane is, some of the services that we offer. So we're always focused on getting data to make decisions. So that's why some of these webinars are so important, is the organization of the data is just as important as the consistency of the data, the reliability of the data. But the organization matters, kind of like if you are sending an email and you know, the data, the content of the email is very important, but you format it very odd, then you probably won't get very many people to look at that email. So today we're going to be talking about organization of that chart of accounts so that we can get people to look at the data. Okay, so here's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about chart of accounts types first, and then we are going to talk about how to create an account. We're going to talk about merging accounts, deleting accounts, and organization of accounts, and then reporting. Okay. All right. So let me go ahead and just start things off talking about account types. And then this is the last time I'm going to be in the slide deck. I'm going to be in product. You know, I like to be in product most of all. So when we look at chart of account types, we're kind of talking about two different areas of reporting, the balance sheet and the profit and loss. Okay, because these account types, the reason that we have account types is so that the reporting on the balance sheet and the profit and loss is correct. Okay. So the different account types that you have access to in QuickBooks Online is cash. And of course, cash would be dollars in the bank, money in savings. Sometimes it's petty cash, right? Cash in drawer. So you have different opportunities for cash, but there is cash. And then the little DR next to it is that the natural balance when we look at a balance sheet. So if I look at a balance sheet and I see a positive amount, that is a debit balance. When cash is positive, it has a debit balance, okay? So when you look at all these DR, they naturally have a debit balance. In order for them to reflect a positive number in QuickBooks Online, you are debiting the account. In order for it to go up on your balance sheet, you are creating a debit. Okay, different than debiting your bank account. This is accounting debiting. All right, so then we have accounts receivable accounts. So pretty self-explanatory what kind of accounts those are. Very rare that we would approve of having multiple accounts receivable accounts. Very rare that we would set that up with a client. Then we have other current assets. So this would be things that you are going to receive within a year, right? The balance of this other current asset is going to be zeroed out within a year, right? So if an employee takes an advance, they take a $1,000 advance, I expect that they're going to pay me back within a year. That would be a current asset within a year. That's what current means. Debit balance. We have fixed assets, right? These are furniture, fixtures, computers, land, buildings, vehicles, etc. Then we have other assets. So those would be things that we're going to hold for over a year or that we're not going to receive within a year's time. So things like security deposits, down payments on a building that we're renting, right? Long-term receivable, something like that. Okay, so that's the top part of the balance sheet so far all the way up to here. Those are our assets. When we look at a balance sheet, it's divided into 3 sections: assets, liabilities, and equity. This is the end of our assets, account types. Then we move to the liability section, which we have accounts payable. So for accounts payable to go up on the balance sheet, you are crediting, right? So that's why we see a credit here. Okay, so we have accounts payable, pretty self-explanatory. We have credit card type accounts, also pretty self-explanatory. We have other current liabilities. This would be things like customer deposits, right? Maybe payroll liabilities. Current means we're going to pay it off within a year. Short-term notes. And then you have long-term liabilities. These are things we're going to pay off over a year. This is another account type. Okay, and then we have equity, right? Equity is the value of the business. All the things roll to equity at the end of the day, right? So, and equity holds credit balance, natural credit balance. Then profit and loss is the second financial report that account types influence the most. So on a profit and loss, we start with income at the top, right? Income is a credit. If you want income to go up, you are crediting. Now, if you think about it, when income goes up, accounts receivable also goes up, which is how we have the debit and credit balance, right? Then we have cost of goods sold is an account type. Cost of goods sold is a debit balance. Expenses is a debit balance. And then we have other income. Other income would be sources of income that we have to recognize throughout the year that are not our normal business, right? So maybe we sold a vehicle and we made some money on it. We're not in the business of selling vehicles. That should be going to other income, gain and loss on sale of fixed assets. Other expenses, same thing. Expenses that are not our normal business practice, right? We sold a vehicle, we lost money on it. That shouldn't go into normal expenses. That goes to other expenses so that we don't factor it into our budgeting and things like that, because that's not normal business practice for us. Okay. As I said, I'm going to go in product now. So getting into my QuickBooks Online Advanced account, how we can access our chart of accounts is you come up here to the gear, right? And then we have our chart of accounts there. It kind of drives me a little crazy that it says chart of accounts lowercase here. I always feel like it should be uppercase, but it's just my internally here at Fourlane, we do chart of accounts COA, and it's all uppercase. Here, they got it right, but not in the menu. Okay, so here we are looking at our chart of accounts. In our list view, the chart of accounts is considered a list inside of QuickBooks. And you can see that it starts out just as we were talking about: bank, accounts receivable, other current assets. I can scroll down, fixed assets. So in the order we were just looking at on the PowerPoint, that is the natural order of the chart of accounts when you're looking at QuickBooks Online. When you create a new account from the list, this is new, by the way. This view is new. They could revert back to the old view, and I'm going to show you how to get to the old view in a second. So if I come in here and say new, they have this new little screen that they pop up on the side, and they give us some of the things we were just talking about. But they give us not the entire list, right? So it's key to be aware of. So if I am trying to set up an other income account, I choose income. I can put it, where do I want to save it under? I have to scroll down to the other income area and then choose my tax form. which is also something funny because not everyone understands which tax form account they should go into. These tax form sections, why these matter is if your accountant is going to pull your data directly into a tax program. So if you are struggling with this, usually what I coach people if they're DIYing their chart of accounts, if they're doing it themselves, to choose either just the top one if they don't know where it's supposed to go, or choose other, and then ask their CPA to review their chart of accounts prior to tax time, because then the CPA can come in and fix the tax form sections. So other income is under income, and then you have to scroll down. Expenses, so same thing. If you're trying to get to cost of goods sold or other expenses, you click on the expenses button here, and then you decide, do you want it to be cost of goods sold, expenses, or if I go way down to the bottom, other expense type. So you have to know to find it and look for it, which can be confusing for some people, right? Because if you log in here and the first time you log in, right, you click on expenses and all of these are my actual accounts, this is the section. So they see cost of goods sold, people, that's the first one on the list. They might just start to put stuff into cost of goods sold, not realizing that expenses is down there, okay? So awareness is key. And then we have under assets, similar thing. So if I look in here, I have accounts receivable, right? I have other current assets, I have fixed assets, and other assets all showing here. These look like what we're used to seeing as header accounts and sub-accounts. They're not. This is the account type, and then this is the account, right? So if you don't have any in here, but in expenses, if you scroll down, you see I have cost of goods sold is my actual account on my financials or in my chart of accounts, and these are sub-accounts under cost of goods sold. This is not a header account. It's just a section. It's just the account type. Okay, going into how you can get to the old view of doing it. So I can come into bills, or I could also go into write checks. If I go to add a bill, it'll take me to the bill screen, and under the category section, right, where we can put in chart of or accounts that we're putting on a bill, I have the ability to add new here. And when I add new, I have all my bank account types, the ones that we're used to seeing before. Okay, so you can get to both. So now here are my bank accounts, fixed asset, other asset, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and set up 2 account types just really quickly so that you guys can see what it looks like. So I am going to set up an advertising expense and a marketing expense because I want to have duplicates that I want to clean up eventually. So we have here expenses. Once we choose expenses, the detail type, this is the same thing as the tax form on the other screen that we were looking at. I'm just going to leave it at advertising and promotional. I'm going to call the name advertising, and then I can put a description if I want. Okay. And then say save and close. Oops, I'm sorry. Switch back into here. And then say save and close in here. Okay. Or save and new, I'm sorry. Then, oh, I already have one with this name. Okay, so let me just call it advertising 2 because I was doing this beforehand when I was testing. Then I'm going to have another one called expenses, advertising and promotional, and I'm going to call this one advertise. Right? I'm getting creative over here, and I'm going to leave the rest of the stuff blank, save and new. Or I can say save and close. Okay, now when I go back into my chart of accounts, those accounts that I created will be in here. Now you can scroll through chart of accounts. You can also enter, right, the names in here, and it pulls down. I don't have to hit enter or return, or I don't have to hit anything for it to pull it up. But now you can see all of the different advertise that I have set up. So I would like to, because I messed up, I should definitely not have 4 different advertising accounts. Nobody will know which one to post this to, and it'll make it very confusing for whoever is entering my bills. So I want to make sure that they are merged together. When we merge 2 accounts together inside of QuickBooks Online, it means that so let's say advertising 2, all of the transactions that went or pointed to advertising 2, if I was merging it into just advertising, they will all be edited to point now to advertising. Okay, so if I look at my audit trail, I'll see that change, all pointed to advertising. So if I come in here on the side and I say edit, they have to have the same, right? So the 2 that I'm merging together, or the one I'm merging into, I have to have matching type and matching detail type in order for it to merge. So here, expenses is the same, right? Advertising and advertising 2, expenses the same. But let's say on advertising 2, I had it as auto for some reason. And then I tried to merge it into advertising. The way you tell QuickBooks, I'm trying to merge these 2 accounts together, is by having the account name, the save under account, the account type, and the tax form, all those 3 fields be exactly the same. If they're not the same, but the account name is the same, right, advertising and advertising, and I say save, you're going to get a warning, okay, because the tax form or the detail type, as it's called over here, is not the same. So it says you cannot merge 2 accounts with different tax form section names. So if I change this back to advertising and promotional, now why you would have 4 advertising account names, I don't know. Hopefully that kind of stuff doesn't happen. You're using your permissions effectively to not allow people to set up chart of accounts, but let's pretend we just have to clean up. Now we can say save, okay? When I say save, now instead of an arrow up top, down below here, it says you already have an account with this name. Would you like to merge them together? And I can say yes, save, and now advertising 2 doesn't exist. A couple of things. When you are in QuickBooks Online, for any of you who have had exposure to desktop before, right? In QuickBooks Desktop, when you're doing mass cleanup, we always recommend you do a backup before you start doing any cleanup, because there is no undo. When you merge those 2 accounts together, if you want to go split those accounts up again because you did not really mean to merge it, there is no undo unless you do a backup, okay? Now, QuickBooks Online Advanced does have the ability to back up your data. So you can back up the company and the snapshot before you do the cleanup. And if you need to revert back to that version before you started cleanup, you would be able to pull it back up again. Now that's just in QuickBooks Online Advanced, so just awareness. And why that matters is, let's say I saw this in our Facebook group the other day, the Fourlane Facebook group. I saw this the other day, and they said, I merged 2 bank accounts together, and now the reconciliations are all off, right? And if you think about it, if I reconciled cash, and then I reconciled my checking account, and then I merged the 2 together, it's going to have the cash, right? The cash is going to have its reconciliations that happened. The checking reconciliations are now gone. So it's going to be messed up. Okay. All right, awareness is key. Oh gosh, already 10 minutes left. Okay, deleting accounts doesn't exist in QuickBooks Online. Woo, that was easy. So when you set up a base QuickBooks Online account file and it gives you some standard chart of accounts, you cannot delete them, but you can merge them to get rid of those extra accounts you don't want. You can make accounts inactive, which we suggest doing, right? Because if the account has a balance, it will show up on a balance sheet. If you make it inactive, it'll still show up on the balance sheet if it has a balance. Okay. So for accounts that are truly inactive, like let's say you have a Wells Fargo account that you are closing and moving all of your business over to Morgan Stanley, that would be an account that you don't want to merge. You want to leave it in there because the history you need to be able to see if you need to go back to the time when you were a Wells Fargo customer. But the go forward would be Morgan Stanley. So Morgan Stanley would stay active, and then you would make Wells Fargo inactive just because then it's harder to get to. It's harder to get to that account if it's made inactive. Okay, so no deleting. So in order to organize, right, under that revenue account, what we do is you come in here. So let's say we're going to set sales of product and services all under revenue because those are all pretty small portions of revenue. And so I'm going to edit it. I am going to go to revenue and make it a sub account of revenue. You say save under account for now and say yes. And then when I come down and look now at revenue, you can see sales looks like it's indented under there a little bit. So let's do a sales of product income as well. I can edit it, come over here to income, move it to revenue, save account under, and say save. All right, of course it gives me an error for this one. It says at least one inventory item uses this account, so the category type must be income and the detail type must be sales of product. So sales of product and say save, and then it'll let me move forward. Okay, so now you see both of them are subs underneath. When we're talking about how we're going to organize anything inside of your accounting file, the reason we do it is because we want to get to a report. Oops, what am I doing? So I'm going to do profit and loss because that's usually the most fun. When we look at a profit and loss statement, right, you have your income section. We talked about that earlier, cost of goods sold, and then you have your expenses section down below, okay? What we want to do is we want to have a profit and loss that is readable. In QuickBooks Online Advanced, you can have over 200 chart of accounts. And we see lots of companies with over 200. Okay. But when you have 200 lines of data on a screen, that is not consumable easily, right? If you're trying to look at profit and loss this month versus last month, it is not easily consumable if you're going through 3 or 4 pages of profit and loss, right? So what we want it to be is consumable. We want somebody to be able to look at it and see what they need to see, make decisions, and then drill down to the details if they need to, okay? And so how we suggest doing that is by organizing the chart of accounts in header, what's called header and sub-accounts. And we say that there should never be a line on the chart of accounts that is less than 5% of revenue. If it's less than 5% in audit terms, it's considered immaterial. So if it's less than 5% of revenue, then it should be in a bucket, right? So like how social media is up under advertising and marketing, it should be bucketed so that we can summarize it instead of needing to see the details. So how do we do that? All right, let's go back to our chart of accounts. And if I come on down to my income section here, so you can see the income right now is all set up as individual income lines, which could be the case if they, right, because they could all, you know, it means you could go up to 20 if they all had exactly 5%. But the idea would be to have everything inside a bucket. That's what we like to do. So we would set up a new account. Oops, what did I just do? We would set up a new account, and we would call a new income account, and we would call it, you know, revenue, whatever we want to call it. There we go. And this doesn't really matter, right? Because I'm not sure what just happened there. This doesn't really matter, the tax form section, because these generic header accounts we never want to post to. They are just there as collapsible buckets for us. So I'm going to say save. So I have my revenue account now. When I come down to income, right, there's that revenue account. Now I want to stick some of these other accounts into revenue. So I can come in and edit this account. Is it not going to let me do it in here? No. I can come in and edit that new account and make it a sub-account of I don't know why on my screen it's not letting me see it. So I'm going to have to figure that part out. I did it earlier. And make it a sub-account of the revenue account. So down here, like you can see in cost of goods sold, you have cost of labor is a sub-account of cost of goods sold. Equipment rental is a sub-account of cost of goods sold. And that's how you should set them up, okay? All right. I have some generic header accounts that I recommend doing. So we have in the cash area, cash and cash equivalents. All cash goes under cash and cash equivalents. Usually because we don't have multiple AR accounts, you don't have to have a header and sub there. Other current assets will do things like all inventory rolls up to an inventory account. All prepaids roll up to a prepaid account. Down in the credit card section, or I'm sorry, in the fixed assets section, we would have all fixed assets going under a header fixed asset account so that we can collapse it down. Or maybe you have the ones that have accumulated amortization under one header and those that have accumulated depreciation under another header account. Then when we come down into our equity, the things that we usually see in equity is like we have here, shareholders' equity, and then sub-accounts of contributions and distributions. All right, so organizing the chart of accounts puts it in a more clean fashion. So anything like this, bad debt, business licenses, commissions and fees, contract labor, we would not want to have them outside of a bucket. Because the expectation would be, hopefully, maybe contract labor, right? But business licenses, hopefully bad debt, not more than 5% of revenue. So they should be bucketed. Okay. I am going to figure out, I'm going to sit here for a minute and figure out how to make it so that I can see the bringing it underneath, how to edit it so that it will go underneath like how employee benefits is. But if you guys have any questions in the meantime, definitely let me know. I'll sit here for a minute and answer any. Oh, while I'm doing that, let me pull up on my screen for next week what we're going to be looking at doing. So we're going to be talking about customers, sub-customers, and projects. And then future courses. Customer deposits did come up as one. Web store clearing. Bank reconciliations, tips and tricks, and then also troubleshooting. Troubleshooting was one of the biggest feedbacks I got last week. How to connect to a bank and work with bank feeds. All things accounts receivable. There are some changes around estimates inside of QuickBooks Online, so I do think that that's a good one to look at. Work in process, and then I heard payroll setup as well. That's going to take me a little bit longer to get set up as a training just because I have to set up a dummy payroll account, and I'm not sure if they'll let me do that. So I'm working my way through that navigation. So this is what's coming up. Okay. All right. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks, guys. I'll see you next week.